In this video I'm going to show you how to measure and mark up your test measure piece. For this we're going to use a tri-square, which is what this is. We're going to use our metal ruler and we're going to use a sharp pencil. This one's an HB pencil. If it doesn't say what it is, then you can assume it's an HB. This is an example of what we're going to do when I prepared earlier. So I've squared off the ends using the tri-square. I've measured 10 millimeters in. This hatched area is waste wood, and this hatched area is also wood that I'm going to remove. This gap here is 5 millimeters, and although it doesn't say, all your waste wood will always be 5 millimeters to account for the thickness of the saw blade. Then it's 40 millimeters between there and there. So what I need to put here to make that clearer, just focus this in a bit. If I put an arrow there, I'm talking about between these lines, that's the measurement. Whether that's 40 or 46, it doesn't matter because you're all going to be using different pieces of scrap wood. What is important is that you square the end there, you square the end here. So square, I mean using a tri-square to get a line that's at 90 degrees to the edge. That you measure 10 millimeters and you square that line as well on 3 faces. And then you measure 5 millimeters from that line and then square those 3 faces as well. Then you're going to measure between this squared end and this squared end. You're going to find out what halfway is between there and there. You're making a mark there at halfway, which is what that is, and then 5 millimeters from there. So because you're all using different wood, you don't have to have 46 and 40, but what you do have to have is squared ends, 10 millimeters, 5 millimeter gap, making sure you know what halfway is between there and there, and squaring all the edges. So I'll just show you how to do that now. So I've got another bit of wood here, and I'm going to start by squaring one end. So I'm putting the tri-square against the end of the, against the face of the wood. So this plate here against the face like this, and kind of close to the end, a few millimeters in from the end, like that. So I get a line. I've scored it twice so that I've got a line I can work to. If I hold it this way, hopefully you can see it clearly. And then from that line, I've got this line here, and then I put this edge there, and I can do the same on this face. So the line is the same all the way around. And I'm going to hatch that bit because that bit is waste wood. Now, the measuring, we can measure from that line now, and we can be confident that that line is, that the line itself is at 90 degrees to the edge. So I'm going to measure 10 millimeters. Our metal ruler starts at 0, so we're going to measure from 0 to 10. So roll around this way. Just make a mark there at 10, and I can do the same thing again. Put the tri-square up against there so I can just see the mark. Draw the line twice. On this face I'm going to put it in line with the pencil mark I've already made, and the same here. So I can see my pencil mark here and go like that. So that's 10 millimeters and it's on 3 faces. On 3 faces because I'm going to cut on this face, and I need to know that these, when I'm cutting, that this line is continues to be at right angles to the edge. Now a bit of 5 millimeter waste wood. So you can see I'm going from 70. It doesn't really matter where you go from. You could go from 100 or 130. It doesn't matter as long as you're on the longer mark that is the the indicator of the 10mm mark. So I'm going to use from 100, and I'm going to go 5mm, like that, from the line I've already drawn, and then repeat the process. There's nothing like repetition to get a skill right. And I'm going to mark this as waste wood. I'm going to do it whilst the tri-square is there, and I'm going to hatch between those two lines, trying to make that as neat as possible. Okay, so now I've got squared end, 10mm and a 5mm gap. I'm going to do the same thing at the other end now. So start by squaring the end. Again, it's where you put it is okay for now. We're not working to a set measurement. You can see that this bit of wood is slightly curved. So by putting that straight line there, it highlights the fact that this wood is not actually flush at the end. Someone's grabbed this piece of wood and put it on the disc sander so it's a bit rounded. So immediately we can see the benefit of squaring the ends. We know the wood that we're starting with is square. If you don't know what you're working with is square from the start, then you're in trouble straight away. So I'm going to go from 0 to 10. I'm going to speed things up this time, and I'm now going to go to 15, which is halfway between 10 and 20. So I've got 2 marks there. So the first one, and slide it along for the 5mm, and do the same thing, getting the tri-square in line. I've gone on the wrong side. I think I'm going to have more lines than I need. So there's my, if I write 10 here, so I've put 10mm here, and I'm going to do it would be unnecessary to do all 4 faces, and then it's you've got to get into the habit of marking your waste wood. When you've got multiple lines and a more complex markup, then it's easy to forget what you're cutting and what you're keeping. Okay, I have to do this 3rd face. And the golden rule with this is measure twice, cut once. So meaning you can measure any number of times, but you can only cut once. So waste wood, so it's squared at the end, 10mm, 5mm. At this end, we've got a squared end, 10mm, 5mm waste wood. Now what I want you to do now is measure between this line here that we know to be square or true, and the line at the other end that's the same. The first line we can be sure of. So I'm going to measure between these two and find out what the midway point is. I don't know what that is at the moment. So I put my 0, the end of the ruler there on that line. I measure all the way along, and I can see that there's 100, 100, 110, 115, 16, 17, 18, 118. So half of that would be 59. So with my 0, the ruler starting there, I'm going to measure along 59. There's 50, there's 60, so it's 1 mark short of that. And that is halfway between the two. Let's double check that by measuring 59 from the other end. Yep, that's 59. So I put 59 on this line here, and 0 is there. So that's good. So there we go, I've measured twice. And there's no harm in double checking measurements at any time, because there's nothing lost in double checking and being sure. But once it's cut, it's cut. So I said that was 59 from there to there, so if I measure that from here to here, so that's 43. What I want you to do next, once you've found the halfway point, whatever your halfway point is, you're going to measure that, and I will come and measure that and check that, make sure it is halfway. And then you're going to put 5mm waste wood, and it can be on either side of the line, I don't mind. Again, I'm using the 100 because you can see on the millimeters, when you start from 0, it's got every ½ millimeter as well, but when you go up to 100, it's only got every millimeter and then it's 5mm, so that's 5, 10, 15, 20. So it's kind of clearer to use if I just want whole millimeters. So I'm going to the 100 mark, and I am going along to 5, like that. Now, you're going to write on here what your measurements are, except the waste. I mean, you could write 5mm if you want in the waste wood, but it's not clear and it's not that important. I'm going to assume that all your waste wood is 5mm. So that, I said that's 43 between there and there. And then this one here I'm going to measure between the waste wood line. So from that waste wood line to this waste wood line is, round up to the nearest whole millimeter, so I'm going to call it 40. It's actually 39.5, but I'll round it up to the whole millimeter, and you can do the same thing, round it to the whole millimeter. So what you want to end up with is a block of wood that has got lines on all three, on the top face and the two sides. It wants to have a squared end at both ends, and then 10mm from that line, 5mm from that line. From this end, 10mm from that squared line, 5mm from that line. Then you're going to measure between both the squared ends and find out what the midway point is. And on one side of that, once you've drawn the line for the midway point, one side of that line you're going to draw a 5mm line that also goes around on three faces. And you're going to write the measurements for it, 10, 40, 43, 10. But yours will be the same, that will be the same, the 10, 10. But if your wood is a different length, then I expect these to be different measurements. But I will measure them and I will see if they are what you say they are. So it comes down to you using the ruler accurately. That's it.